Givenchy was waiting in his studio, measuring thread and a bit of nylon. Now that the war was over, the military had finally stopped using nylon in parachutes, and one could finally use nylon commercially and artistically. And Givenchy was an up-and-coming fashion designer in France, but just barely. His first collection had been famous for interesting designs crafted with cheap fabric. But it was finally changing. He'd been invited to design a wardrobe for a major Hollywood motion picture he believed would star Katharine Hepburn. Charismatic, voluptuous, curvaceous Miss Hepburn was the biggest star of her day. And the bell rings and the door opens and a skinny young wisp of a girl steps in. And Givenchy is confused. This was his appointment with Miss Hepburn? Perhaps this was her assistant? But as it turns out, Givenchy had misunderstood. He wasn't designing for Katharine Hepburn. He was designing for a no-name failed ballet dancer and wannabe actress named Audrey Hepburn. And Audrey couldn't be more different from Givenchy's expected client. For Katharine kept all the right curves in all the right places, and Audrey was a rail. She looked like the skinny girl next door because Audrey Hepburn had been a growing teenager in World War II, where she lived through what was called the Hunger Winter in 1944 in the Netherlands, and it left a permanent mark on her physique. And when American GIs finally rolled in and liberated the city, they handed the emaciated girl 6 chocolate bars, which she wolfed down and promptly threw back up from not malnutrition. And years later, with Givenchy at her side, they redefined fashion, where millions of women who had grown up frustrated that they didn't look anything like Katharine Hepburn, well, they saw themselves in this plain Jane girl next door. And it was just the beginning. You know, it might surprise you to learn that Audrey Hepburn, she acted in fewer than 30 films. For comparison, that's about half as many as Meryl Streep or Harrison Ford. Gracious, Lindsay Lohan has acted in about as many as Audrey Hepburn. And yet, today, she remains a cultural icon in a way that even most successful actors of our day simply aren't. How many times have you seen that little black dress poster? Or listened to Moon River? Or I said, what about breakfast at Tiffanys? So we've covered many important historical figures who have directly contributed to humanity as a whole in very clear and distinct ways. So why are we talking about Audrey Hepburn? Why are we talking about an actress? Because soft power, because beauty and grace matter. And I'm not just talking about her life on the silver screen, because after her film career, Audrey Hepburn channeled her inner celebrity into a decades-long career as a philanthropist and as a UNICEF ambassador advocating for children across the world. Where beauty and fame, those are ephemeral things, but the power to enchant and to persuade created real-world impacts for children from Bangladesh to Guatemala. And we like to think that we're rational and we're smart. We fancy ourselves an ape that has out-evolved our slow, stupid, volatile ancestors. Well, we haven't. We are a rider upon an elephant of emotion, jumping to conclusion and rationalizing the justification simply after the fact, where beauty and charisma can take us by the hand and walk us through the door. And the whole time, we think that we're choosing to do so. Our eyes dilate and the hairs on the back of our necks stand up and our pulse quickens, and it's a bit like love, and it's a power that can bring out the best in us. Or the worst. And these are the things that Tessa is concerned with. How a leafy canopy will change the quality of light, and how still water will reflect an image, and how flowers will turn to face the sun. How color and light can change a space that people simply must be, and turn it into a space that people want to be. She's inspired and she is inspiring. When Juniper invents explosives, Tessa creates fireworks. And being so acutely aware of the unseen makes her particularly sensitive, so she's often misinterpreting things. Yeah, Marcy might be a little dismissive, but she's just busy, and Connor might be insulting, but he's just joking around. Again, And so while Marcy will fight for the little guy, Tessa will empathize with the little guy. And so she's a crier. And that's okay, because being sensitive means that you're basically hyper aware of literally everything all the time. And it pays off really well when you can smell the salt water on a warm summer beach. But it hurts when Duncan is downright dismissive when his rice fields are decimating local lizard populations. And she makes June uncomfortable. Needless to say, the resident mad scientist-in-chief isn't exactly in touch with her feelings. And sometimes it can seem like Tessa knows what's in June's head before even she does. And when June just finally breaks down because she can't figure something out, Tessa is there talking her through it before June even knows her first tear is about to come out. And Tessa, she's an actress, she's a persuader, she's an artist, she's a photographer. You know, let's say that Cyrus has built a community hut and no one simply wants to use it, but you let Tessa rearrange it and it suddenly becomes a space where people want to be. And, well, it confuses him, but look, as we talked about before, Marcy and Duncan will work together to make rules about the island, with Marcy writing them up and Duncan enforcing them. But when Marcy can convince Tessa to get on board with something, she suddenly doesn't even need an enforcer, because the people will want to follow the rules. If Duncan is hard power, Tessa is soft power. And truth be told, Marcy's a little jealous of Tessa. Marcy's got all of these ideas about how to make things better. But she gets treated as a busybody when Tessa says the same thing. And everyone just listens to Tessa. Marcy thinks there's a formula for everything. When Tessa or she propose the exact same thing, it should have the same result. But how you propose a thing, the aesthetic and the presentation, it matters a great deal. And that's a hone skill, the kind of hone skill that Duncan respects. It's soft power, and soft power does not hold a gun. It's the photographers and the musicians and the painters, the people who shape how we see the world, even when we don't notice them doing it. It's a slim little dancer who wanted to be a ballerina until World War II shut upon Europe, who picked herself up from the ashes and did absolutely everything that she could to inspire the world anyway. And that inspiration, Audrey Hepburn's intangible beauty and charisma, turned into real schools and wells and vaccines all across the world to people. And it's soft power. And that is Tessa. So, thank you for watching. My name is Laura, and this is a character exploration for Tessa in an animated show called Fish and Ships. Keep up with me on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I'll see you there.